Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video I'm going to show you how to make cut and tuck cards. These are a really clever way of making effective and simple greetings cards with a Cricut machine. For this video we're going to be making these two flower cards using the free SVGs available on my blog, craftwithsarah.com. And all of these other designs you can see beneath are available in my shop, and I'll drop the link to that in the description of the video. Let's get started. You can download the free cutting file for this project at craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs or follow the link in the description of this video to go straight to the download page. The download comes in a zip folder and you need to unzip this before you can upload the files into Cricut Design Space. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to upload the SVGs into Cricut Design Space. Open up Design Space and start a new project, and then go into Upload over on the left, and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find the files on your computer, or you can drag and drop them in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the folder, and then the files you need for Cricut Design Space are the ones which start SVG in the file name. Don't upload any of the other ones into Design Space because they won't work. You need the ones that start SVG. There are two different ones in here. One is for the flower circle and one is for the flower line, and you can see that in the file name. I'm going to start with the flower circle one, so I'll click and drag that in. And then it will look like this, where you can just see the little outlines, and then press upload. Now it's in my recent uploads, so I can click on it and then press add to canvas. You'll find that some of the flowers will fill in when you move it onto your canvas. That's fine, that's just showing you that these are complete shapes that are going to cut out from the cardstock, whereas these ones here that are still white in the middle, these are just single line cuts, which is going to enable us to do the folding. Don't worry if that didn't make sense. All you really need to know is that it does not matter that some of the flowers are filled in and some of them aren't. Alright, so we need to put this onto our card, because if we were just to cut this out, then we'd then have to trim it into a card shape manually. And why do that when we can get the Cricut to do it for us? If you want to, you can make a card base in Design Space. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to use a pre-made 6x6 inch card front that I've already got in my craft stash, and I've had these for years and I'm desperately trying to use them up. So I'm going to use a pre-made card, but if you want to make one yourself in Design Space, you can absolutely do that. And I have a separate video on how to make card bases in Design Space, so I'll add a link to that in the description of this video for if you want to check that out. What I'm going to do instead for this video is I'm going to just make the layers that are going to go on top of my pre-made card blank. So first I'm going to go into shapes, and then when that's loaded, it's very slow at the moment, I'm going to choose a square. And then my card, as I said, is 6x6 inches. So I want this to be ½ an inch smaller on each side, which means this will be 5x5 inches. We'll do a rectangular card for the flowers that go in a line a little bit later on in this video. But for now, this is my square. And then this is a large square, and I like to cut this from either metallic or holographic card, something with a bit of shine and pizzazz to it. It just looks really, really good when you see that colour peeking through from the cut and tuck design we're going to put over the top. So let's change this one to a nice bright pink colour. And then we need to make another shape to go on top of this, and that's the one that the flowers are actually going to be cut out of. So I'll click on this and then press duplicate over on the top, and then I'll make this one white. You can make it any colour you like, but I prefer to cut my top layers out from white, as I find it really shows that second colour through well. This needs to be ½ an inch smaller on each side again, so that will be 4.5 inches. And you'll see when these are cut out, you'll have that lovely border of pink or whatever colour you're choosing around the edge. And then we can drag the flowers on. You'll probably find that they're appearing underneath the squares at the moment. So to get them to the top, you can either click and drag in the layers panel to move it to the top, or if I just undo that, you can click on it and go arrange, bring to front, and now you can drag that and it will appear on top of the squares. Resize it with the little arrow in the bottom right until you're happy with the size that is on the square. Just going to zoom in a bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to perfectly position these flowers in the middle of my white. So I'm going to click on that flower layer in the layers panel, press shift on my keyboard and choose the white square, and then go into align and center. It didn't change that much because I was actually pretty accurate with just dragging it on, but now I know that's exactly in the middle. There's one more thing I need to do, which is to tell the Cricut that I want it to cut these flowers out of that white square rather than doing it separately on another piece of card. So make sure you've got the flower layer and the white square still selected, and then down the bottom of the layers panel, press attach. When I did that, you'll notice it took the black out of these two flowers and now it just shows an outline. That's absolutely fine, don't worry about that. That's just what happens when you attach something. This is now ready, so I could go ahead and cut this out. If I click make it, just to show you, we've got our square here with the flowers, and that's going to cut it out of the middle of our square, and then the pink square there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those out, and then I'll show you how to stick the card together in a little while. But before I do that, let's take a look at the matching flower line SVG and add a little bit of extra to our card front by using some of the images and text within Cricut Access. Here's the flower line SVG, and I've already done the first few steps. So I've made my rectangles, and this time it's to go on a 7x5" card, and again I'm going to use a pre-made card. So my pink layer to go on top is 1/2 inch smaller on each side, which makes it 6.5 inches wide and 4.5 inches tall. And then for the white layer on top, that needs to be 1/2 inch smaller on each side again, which makes this one 6x4. But of course, you'll need to alter those measurements depending on the size of card you want to make. I've put my flowers on the top of this, but I haven't attached the layers yet because I want to add some extra details, and then I might move this about a little bit at the end. I just think that there's a lot of empty space on here that we could better use and fill in with some other pictures and some text. To start with, I'm going to go into images, and then I'll search for birthday. And then I want to draw this with my Cricut pens, so I'm going to go under operation type and choose draw only, and then have a little look to see what is in here. I quite like that happy birthday to you as a sentiment, and these candles look nice as well. I think I can use both of those on the design. Let's give that a try. That was really weird. That zoomed out my card by going into images and then back to the main thing. That must be a little bug. I'll zoom in again so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. Now these two images that I've chosen, you see the operation says pen, which means these can be drawn with the pens in my Cricut machine. And I'm going to choose, I think, a red colour for the candles and just make them a bit bigger. And then the happy birthday to you, I'll put in the middle. And I'll keep that as black, I think, so it stands out. Now you could leave it like this, but I think we can add some extra layers to this card. And I'm going to add some more rectangles behind this happy birthday to you. So I'll just copy that pink one by clicking on it and pressing duplicate. And then drag it below that pen layer. And then I'm going to untick the padlock up here so that I can change the rectangle size out of its original proportion. And just have a little play. That's probably about right, but I want another white one too. So to make this easier, let's look at this size. Let's change that to 0.75 inches tall and 5.5 inches wide. And that's just going to make this next bit easier to do the maths. So I'm going to duplicate this rectangle and make it white. And then make it a little bit smaller, so 1/4 inch smaller on each side, which will be 5.25 and 0.5. Okay, so now I need to drag that below. I think that's going to work really nicely. All right, let's do our attaching before we cut it out. And the reason we do this, just to show you, is that otherwise if I click make it, you see it's going to do all this drawing and then these on a completely different mat. And in fact, my flowers, it's got on a different color entirely. And that's not what we want. We want it all to be nicely joined up. And that's why we attach. And it's got rid of my zoom again. So weird. Okay, right, so first I'm going to do this happy birthday. So I'm going to click the happy birthday layer in the layers panel, press shift on my keyboard and choose the white rectangle we've put underneath. First, I'm going to perfectly position this greeting in the middle. So let's go align and center. And it just looks neater if you take that additional step. And then with those two layers still selected, I'm going to press attach down at the bottom. All right, that's the first attach done. The next attach is to put the flowers and the candles onto the white rectangle, the big one. So I'm going to select all of those layers, the candles, the flowers, and the rectangle. So I've just clicked them all in the layers panel whilst holding the shift key down on my keyboard. And then I want to align these as well. So let's go align. But this time I can't press center because it will move the flowers and the candles into the middle. What I want to do instead is center horizontally. And that just shifted them about a little bit. So now on the flowers, it's the same distance on the left and the right. And the same with the candles. It's now perfectly in the middle, horizontally on that white. With those three layers still selected, press attach. And when you attach something, it moves it to the top of the layers panel. So I'm just going to move it down again so we can see everything and just check 100% that you're happy. If you've done a lot of design work, at this point I would strongly recommend saving your project by clicking save up the top and then making sure that's all saved before you cut it out, just in case anything happens and you need to close Design Space and open it again. You don't want to lose all of this work. But then once you've saved it, it's ready to cut out. And now when you click make it, because we've done that attaching, you see the happy birthday is appearing on that little rectangle. And then the flowers are going to be cut from that big rectangle. And it's going to do the candles drawn down the bottom. And then on the pink, we've got our other two rectangles. So this would all be ready for me to go and cut out. So whichever design you're making, either the flowers in a circle or the line of flowers, get those layers cut out and then I'll show you how to make the cut and tuck effect. Here are my designs all cut out and I've roughly put them into position, and I've also got my pre-made base cards. This one's got a pretty scallop edge to it, and then this one's just a plain 5x7 rectangle. So to put them together, I'll start with this one, and I'm going to begin by just folding up the flowers, and actually I'll put the pink card in place just so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better because of my white table. Now to fold up the little shapes so that we can tuck them under, you can either do it with your fingers, or you might find it easier if you've got a little spatula to get that so that you can get under the picture to fold it up. So choose a side to start. It doesn't matter if you start at the beginning or at the end. And then carefully get the little bit of the flower, and then we're just going to fold it over back on itself. You see it makes the rest of the shape, so now we have that full flower effect. And then I'm going to do the same on the next one. So just carefully fold that back on itself. And this is very narrow bits of cardstock, so you need to be careful when you're doing it so that you don't accidentally tear it. So it's best to go really slowly to make sure that everything folds up as it's meant to. And I kind of find it's easier to rotate the card a bit as you're going, so that you're always folding back towards yourself. Now that we've got all of the little flowers folded upwards, it's time to start the tucking. So we've done the cut, now for the tuck. Again, you can start at whichever side you like, but what we're going to do is we're going to tuck the little pop out bits of flower underneath the petals of what was there in the next flower shape. So carefully pick up those bits, being careful not to sort of bend it. Might try it with the spatula tool. And then tuck that one under, so flatten it out, and then let the other bit drop back into place. And you see that kind of goes over the top, so it holds it flat. Now do the same on the next one. It is quite fiddly. There we go. Number 2. That's number 2, and then keep going for all of the shapes. So all of these flowers are going to get tucked under the next shape. When you get to the last one, this is going to tuck into the cutout that we've got here that doesn't have the little fold in. So I'm just going to pull this one back, one petal at a time, and get that last flower tucked under. And then, there we go, there's our little tuck. All done. So it's time to start putting the rest of the card together. I prefer to glue this layer to the pretty one underneath, but it's up to you. You could use foam squares if you want to. The glue I'm using is called Collall. I really like it because it doesn't bend or warp the cardstock like some other glues can do, and I put it into these tiny needle tip bottles. Other brands of glue that are really good for card making are Art Glitter Glue and Barely Art Glue. I'm going to put my glue around the edge and then a little bit in these corners and the middle. You want to make sure you don't get any glue over any of the holes or any of the little cut pieces that are poking through. Otherwise you'll glue them down and it just won't look good, or if you get it over the holes then you'll see that glue coming through. Then put it in the middle like that. And here's my card blank with the pretty edges on it, and then I'm going to foam square the card right into the middle. So I'm going to be careful because that glue's still a little bit wet. You should probably wait for it to dry, but I'm being impatient. And then I've got some foam squares, And I'm going to put these all around the edge. And also in the middle. The reason we put them in the middle as well is to create a nice even shelf of foam for the card to sit on. If there was nothing in the middle, then the middle of my card will dome down because there's nothing in there to keep it stable, which is fine, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it just won't look as good as it would if you put that little foam square in the middle. Then I'll peel the tops off to reveal all of the lovely stickiness underneath. And then here's my card front. And I'm just going to put this in the middle. And I'm not very good at this bit, getting it straight, especially when on camera. That's looking okay. So I'm going to push down to seal. And there is my card all ready to decorate. To decorate, I'm going to use these sticky flatback gemstones and just put one in the middle of each of these flowers. Oh, I didn't actually realise these are all joined together on a string. Look, they're not individual, but I'm sure I can cut them apart. Before I give this to whoever I end up giving it to, I'll add a little sticker, a peel-off sticker, in the middle of the circle, which says, you know, happy birthday or best wishes or whatever it's for. But I like to leave the sentiment sometimes. If the card's quite sort of generic, like this one, it could be for a lot of different occasions, I'll leave the greeting until I actually know what I'm going to use the card for and who's going to get it, so that I can add a suitable message in the middle at the time. Last little gemstone going on. And there is my card. It's very pretty. See, it opens up and it's ready for me to add my message in there at a later time. And I've got that lovely glittery card showing through. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. But now let's jump on to the next card. This card will go together in much the same way, except this time we have a line of the cut and tucks rather than doing it in a circular motion. And we have these extra little decorations that we did in Design Space. So like before, I'm going to start with the cut and tuck and going to do the folding first. So I'll start at one end and work my way down, and we're just picking up that little outline of the flower on each of them, getting it right down where those cut lines end and folding it back on itself. So hopefully you can see that. Let's try and move it a little bit closer. There you go, you can see how that worked. And then I'll do the same for all of them. That's the second. And then here is number 3. To do the ones on the other side, I'm going to turn it round because it's easier to fold back towards yourself. Right, all the folding done. Now for the tucking. So again, I'm going to kind of work each side first, but I'm going to start with the one closest to the middle and then gently pop up those flowers, that petal, and tuck the next flower underneath it. So you see this one here, I've just tucked it under that petal to hold it in place. And then I can do the same with the other ones. And I just tuck into that chain of flowers, and then it will hold it all flat. And then do the same on the other one. Start in the middle. There we go. And then work along the chain until they're all done. There. All right, that's looking really pretty. Let's just put it up there so you can see. And then, just like before, I will glue this onto my pink layer. Bit of glue around all those edges. And then a little bit more at the bottom. And then I'll put a tiny bit in between some of the flowers, but make sure you don't get your glue over any of the gaps. And then stick it onto the card. Okay, oops, I don't know where that's going. All right, we've also got our little happy birthday sentiment, and I'm going to also glue this. So turn it upside down, put my glue along, and stick it to the rectangle underneath. It's very slippery because it's mirror card, but there we go. Okay, this should have should have dried enough now that I can put my foam squares on the back. Remember that one in the middle? Peel off the tops to release all of the stickiness underneath. And then here's my 5 by 7 inch card blank, and I'll just put this in the middle, hopefully somewhat straight. Okay, and then for my sentiment, that'll go in the gap, and I'll add the foam squares again to the back of this for that extra bit of dimension. If you're worried about your card getting a little bit too thick so that it would be more expensive to post, then you could just glue this to the front instead. So if you didn't want to add that extra layer of foam, gluing it would look really lovely as well. Okay, there we go. And then finally, because I've used red for the little candles, I'm going to also get some red gemstones to put in the middle of the flowers, because I love it when a card's got a little bit of bling on it. And these are sticky backed, so they're really easy to put on. Okay. One last little touch, I have these red flat backed hearts. This might be a bit too much, we shall see. The adhesive actually didn't come off then. I might have to glue these, they're quite old and I think the backing's given up. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of glue on the back instead. This is what happens when you buy too much craft supplies that you then don't use for years and years. They stop being as good. Put one there. And then, yeah, that did the same thing. Bit of glue will fix it. one in that corner. And there is our 2 cut and tuck cards with the pretty flowers all finished. If you enjoyed these cards and you'd like to make more, then check out my SVG shop because I have lots more cut and tuck designs available in there. All of these designs and more greetings cards are also available to download for free if you join Craft Clubhouse, which is my pay once, get new designs every month membership. There's more information about Craft Clubhouse in the description of this video, but for now I just thought I'd quickly show you some of those other designs. I'll also drop the link to my shop in case you'd just like to get the individual designs without joining the whole of Craft Clubhouse. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and free SVGs. Thank you for watching. Bye!